Okay, welcome back to RWR Plays TEW 2020. This is Chapter 20 of our series as we head into Slamboree. We're going to do the Slamboree pay-per-view today. It's been moved from its traditional slot in May all the way to August. This is, of course, us playing as Eric Bischoff as WCW lives on beyond April 2001, where Fusion Media Ventures have bought the company instead of WWE in this alternative timeline. If you've been enjoying the series up to this point, please hit that subscribe button because that is a massive factor in terms of us gaining more views and more people seeing this series as we go through. And obviously we want to make this as big a success as we possibly can in order really just to keep it going for as long as we can. In terms of what took place on the Go Home episode of Nitro before this pay-per-view, the main happening was DDP and Kevin Nash's match play against Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell, where the Insiders were required to win both singles matches in order to get themselves a tag team title shot at this pay-per-view, and they did indeed do that. So DDP and Kevin Nash will face Totally Buff at Slamboree. Other than that, there was a lot of build, basically a lot of interviews for different people involved in the big matches. Of course, the show itself, in addition to that Totally Buff Insiders tag team title match, will also include the grudge match between Scott Steiner and Ric Flair, where Sting has agreed to be in Ric Flair's corner. We've got the WCW World Heavyweight Championship match as Booker T faces Jeff Jarrett. We've got the cage match between Bill Goldberg and Shane Douglas as their feud reaches what could be a conclusion here at Slamboree. We've got the Cruiserweight tag team titles on the line. Rey Mysterio Jr. and Billy Kidman taking on the FBI. And US champion Mike Awesome defending his belt against Tommy Dreamer, as well as a couple of other matches for you on the show. So I guess without further ado, let's get to Slamboree. And for Slamboree, we are at the first Niagara Arena in New York. The first time we've hit the tri-state area, and we've got 16,793 fans in the building for this. You can see how the pay-per-views attract a lot bigger crowds than your average episode of Nitro. We've got, as usual, a couple of dark matches before the show. The first one, Bobby Eaton, Jason Jett and the European Union against Road Warrior Animal, Reno and the American Mavericks. And this one was won by Road Warrior Animal, Reno and American Mavericks when James Storm pinned Jason Jett in 8 minutes and 28 seconds. This one got a segment rating of 50 and warmed the crowd up nicely. Norman Smiley was the best performer in the match. Road Warrior Animal pretty decent too. And as you can see, Chris Harris and James Storm continue to be pushed since their repackaging as the American Mavericks. A pretty decent performance from most people in the ring with the exception of Reno here. In the second dark match of the night, Kaz Hayashi takes on Evan Courageous, and in a segment rating of 56, Courageous defeated Kaz Hayashi in 6 minutes and 39 seconds. So the crowd should be nice and warmed up as we go into the main show of Slamboree then. And the opening contest sees Curt Hennig and Lance Storm take on each other in a 20-minute time limit draw. This got a segment rating of 76, a really strong way to start the show. Curt Hennig had an in-ring performance of 71, Lance Storm a 78. The pair have great chemistry, and that showed in their performance, and these two have gone to a time limit draw. I think this would have been one of those sort of matches that would go down as sort of a really sort of hardcore fans sort of dream match in some ways. Curt Hennig versus Lance Storm, a clash of different generations really that didn't, I'm not sure it ever happened in real life. Possibly it happened in WCW towards the end of WCW, but I'm not sure that that's the case. But whatever the case, they drew here, 20-minute time limit draw, 76. Pretty decent start to the show. Lance Storm had Hennig trapped in a Canadian crab, but the bell went before Hennig could tap out. In the next match is the Gothic Collective versus Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo, and O'Haire and Palumbo get the victory when Chuck Palumbo pins Jester. 12 minutes 32 seconds this one went for, and another really good segment rating here of 69. Vampiro was the best performer in the match, and everybody else performed well too, so this was a really positive tag team contest too. Really happy with this. These two teams have of course been feuding for a while, and O'Haire and Palumbo come out here as the winners. The next match is for the United States title, and Mike Awesome wins the match in 14 minutes and 27 seconds by pinfall. Mike Awesome makes defense number 3 of the US title. As you can see though, Awesome and Tommy Dreamer just don't click at all, and it showed in their performance. So their segment rating is only a 58, despite Awesome's performance of 63 and Tommy Dreamer 58. Slightly disappointing here, but then again, Tommy Dreamer was definitely a downgrade, I think, on Mike Awesome's previous US title opponents. And again, the fact that they had a poor chemistry shows that this wasn't too bad ultimately, given all of that. In the next match, it's the Cruiserweight the Cruiserweight Tag Team titles on the line, and the FBI defeated Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr. in 10 minutes and 40 seconds when James Maritato submitted Rey Mysterio Jr. after interference from Johnny the Bull. The FBI therefore win the Cruiserweight Tag Team titles. Rey Mysterio Jr. was head and shoulders above everyone else. Frankie Cicero was the weak link in this one. You can see Rey Mysterio Jr. an 81 rated, Billy Kidman 70, James Maritato 61 as well, so he's going well. And a segment rating overall of 61, which is not bad at all. So the story of this match is that Rey had the match won until Johnny the Bull pulled his leg as he's going for a springboard splash on Maritato, and Rey went headfirst into the ring apron. Bull then rolled him back in the ring, and Maritato hits a Sicilian slice for the victory. We have a new Cruiserweight Tag Team Champions. Obviously, that was my story. The game decided that James Maritato was going to submit Rey Mysterio Jr. That might have been a mistake in terms of my road agenting for this match, but ultimately Maritato gets the victory, and the FBI are the new Cruiserweight Tag Team Champions. After this, we get a backstage interview. Tony Schiavone is joined by the Insiders ahead of their tag team title match later in the night. Schiavone asks them how it felt on Monday to secure the title shot, and DDP says not only was it great to see justice done by ensuring they got their rematch at Totally Buff, but also it gives them a real psychological edge that they have managed to defeat both their opponents in singles matches. Schiavone then asks what their game plan is for the match, and Kevin Nash says that not meaning to be a douche or anything, but he has the experience, and so he's going to be leading as team captain out there tonight. And as long as DDP follows his instructions, we're going to have new tag champs on the show. Segment rating of 70 here. DDP and Kevin Nash talking about their strategy. Pretty good segment this. Everybody performed well, and some continued strange comments from Kevin Nash here in regards to the fact that he's going to lead the team. This segment was really just to buy our crew some time so they could erect the cage for the Bill Goldberg-Shane Douglas match, and Bill Goldberg defeated Shane Douglas in 11 minutes 38 seconds by pinfall in a segment rating of 77. A really good match here. The best match that Goldberg's had since our relaunch, and he had a performance of 87. Shane Douglas is 67. This was a good way to blow off the feud with Goldberg coming out on top. Then we have the WCW Tag Team title match, and in a bout that had fantastic heat and good wrestling, Totally Buff defeated the Insiders in 15 minutes and 32 seconds when Buff Bagwell pinned Diamond Dallas Page after a Buff blockbuster. And the story of this one is that in the first half of the match, Totally Buff cut the ring off on DDP, working him over in their corner as Kevin Nash got progressively more frustrated at not being able to get in there. Eventually, the opportunity arose for DDP to get the tag, but DDP instead went for a diamond cutter and hit it, but was unable to follow up the pin on Lex Luger. Seeing this unfold, Nash angrily jumped from the ring apron and could be heard to say, "Fine, if that's what you want," before storming out of the arena, leaving DDP one-on-one with Luger and Bagwell, who finished him off with the Buff blockbuster and retained their title. So this was Totally Buff's third successful defense of their World Tag Team titles. Kevin Nash was head and shoulders above everyone else in the ring. He had a rating of 80, Bagwell a 69, DDP a 67, and Luger a 58. You can see here Kevin Nash sustained some dehydration in the match. We'll see if that keeps him out for any length of time. But a segment rating of 72, another really good match for this pay-per-view. Then we get the WCW World Heavyweight Title match, which sees Booker T versus Jeff Jarrett. Early in the contest, John Cena is thrown out from ringside after the referee caught him about to punch Booker on the outside. In the course of the bout, referee Charles Robinson gets sandwiched between the two wrestlers and goes down. This leads to Nick Patrick coming to the ring and counting the fall after Booker uses the bookend on Jarrett to take the victory. And so you can see here in 18 minutes and 1 second, Booker T gets the win by pinfall. His fourth defense of the World Heavyweight Title. A segment rating of 67, which is disappointing, I'd say, especially when you consider Booker T had a 71 and Jeff Jarrett a 73. This should have been slightly higher, I think, in terms of the segment rating, but nevertheless, Booker T comes out the victor. After the contest, however, Mike Sanders comes out to the ring and grabs a microphone. Sanders says that he has to draw everybody's attention to section 3.2.1 of the contract that was signed a couple of weeks ago on Nitro. He says it clearly states that Charles Robinson is the assigned official for the bout, and should he not call the finish of the match, the result would be declared null and void and the contest would restart. Eric Bischoff and officials come down to the ring and look at the contract, and Bischoff says that even though it's a very unusual clause for a WCW match contract, it's clear that Sanders had it included in there before they were signed. He then reluctantly orders the match to restart. So you've got here a segment rating of 72. Mike Sanders is a really good guy on the mic, so he's really performing well in these segments, and Eric Bischoff was also good here. The rematch, or the match, gets restarted, but this time the match only lasts 3 minutes and 48 seconds, and Jeff Jarrett wins by disqualification. So here Jeff Jarrett brings a chair into the ring while Sanders distracts the referee. However, Booker T manages to dispossess Jarrett and picking it up himself. As he hit Jarrett with the chair, however, the referee turned around and saw Booker T using it. He promptly then disqualified Booker, handing the victory, though not the title, to Jeff Jarrett. So a segment rating of 67, again, both of them 74 and 75 performances, pretty decent here, and Booker T retains the title despite Jeff Jarrett winning this sort of restarted match by disqualification. And so to our main event, Scott Steiner versus Ric Flair, with Sting stood in Ric Flair's corner and Rick Steiner in Scott Steiner's corner. Rick Steiner and Sting get into a brawl outside the ring, and Rick Steiner manages to reach a piece of the cage from earlier, which he then uses to knock Sting out cold. Rick Steiner then hits Flair in the back with a steel chair behind the ref's back, and Steiner applies the Steiner recliner. Flair has no choice but to tap. So Steiner wins in 16 minutes and 43 seconds by submission. Segment rating of 87, easily the best match we've put on since the beginning of our save. Steiner an in-ring performance of 87, Flair a 77, and Flair was off his game, so they might have even gone a little better than this if Flair hadn't been off his game, and Scott Steiner was visibly tiring toward the end. I did actually get a road agent note when I was booking the match to tell me that Scott Steiner might struggle to go this long, so that's a bit of a thing to consider when it comes to Steiner in the future. But whatever the case, a victory for Scott Steiner in the best match we've put on so far. And that's the end of Slamboree, and some really, really good matches here. First of all, we got the main event, which was an 87. The tag team match was a 72. Goldberg versus Douglas was a 77. And of course, Kurt Hennig and Lance Storm's opener was a 76. So this is the best show we've put on so far. The best main event we've had so far. A really successful show in pretty much every metric. Overall rating of 82. That has increased our popularity everywhere that the card was seen. So that's a really, really good news story. Before I move on, though, obviously I'll give my end of show speeches. I think I'm going to give Scott Steiner a praise for a great performance. I think I'll give him also, Ric Flair, some credit as well. And I want to also give, I guess Bill Goldberg probably should get some praise for his performance, and they all seem pleased, so that's good news. So that's Slamboree in the books, and I think that was a really, really good show. Some great matches we put on there, and obviously Scott Steiner coming out on top in the main event. Some shenanigans going on in terms of the world title match between Booker T and Jeff Jarrett, thanks to Jarrett's lawyer Mike Sanders, and a great opener. New Cruiserweight Tag Team Champions, of course, the FBI defeating Rey Mysterio Jr. and Billy Kidman. Some interesting stuff in terms of, we once again went head-to-head with SummerSlam, and no doubt SummerSlam was an amazing show. 81,000 fans, again in Tri-State, so they were in the same state as us. Let's just have a look exactly where it was. It was in, it just says held in Tri-State, so I'm assuming it was just a generic venue because they didn't have one big enough for what they expected to bring in. Chris Jericho defeated Steve Austin for the World Heavyweight title in the main event, a 99 rated match. The Undertaker defeated Kurt Angle in a Hell in a Cell match. The Rock defeated Kane. Eddie Guerrero defeated Raven for the WWF Intercontinental title. Yeah, a pretty big show from them. Obviously Jericho winning the world title in the main event, pretty big for them. And yeah, a massive show that we went head to head with. But Slamboree was a really, really good show, and I'm really pleased with what we've done there. Just having a look at this injury for Kevin Nash. He's going to be out for a few days to fully heal from his dehydration, which is quite funny. The game obviously treating that as if it's a normal injury of some kind. Yeah, really pleased with Slamboree. Really, really happy. Before we go today, though, I wanted to kind of go through one or two things. First of all, I look at our popularity. And you can see since the last time I showed this has gone up. Everywhere is now 60 or 61, and the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic are up to 63, which is really, really good. I mean, we're never, well, I say we're never. It's going to take us a long, long time to get to big sized. Hopefully the series will go long enough that we could potentially do it, but it's going to be a very, very long time till we get to big size. So we'll wait for a while on that one. But anyway, in the US, we are increasing our popularity on a regular basis. Wanted to also show you the renewed Top 100. So Top 100 events, obviously we haven't done 100 events yet. We've done 22 when you consider that WCW Saturday Night is considered a separate event to Nitro each week. Slamboree is now the #1 rated event we've done with an 82 there. Top 100 matches, Scott Steiner versus Ric Flair is now the best match we've put on so far. But also from Slamboree, we've got Bill Goldberg versus Shane Douglas in its 7th place for the year. Kurt Hennig versus Lance Storm was in 8th place for the year. And also, I think, yes, Totally Buff versus the Insiders is in the top 20 as well. So 4 matches have entered in very high to our best matches yet. And in particular, obviously, that main event taking us there, 87. That's really, really decent. Also wanted to show you a little bit around viewerships. Now, obviously, the pay-per-views are a lot lower, although you can see Slamboree here, down in 16th, is the best viewership we've had for any of our pay-per-views. So, more than the Big Bang, Bash of the Beach, and the Great American Bash. But also, look at the viewers for Nitro, and you can see that gradually, as you go up the list, there are more recent episodes. So, the 3 in August are our 3 best viewerships. So, if you kind of almost take it as if in May we were averaging 1.4 million. We're now averaging 1.65 million ish, and so we've increased our average viewership by about 250,000 viewers over the course of the few months that we've been doing this. And but it's easier for me to talk about this in modern standards rather than game standards or even in 2001 standards. But 250,000 viewers, if AEW increased their viewership by 250,000 viewers on average per week, that would be a really good news story for AEW. So I think we're doing a pretty good job in terms of rebuilding WCW and the reputation that was pretty much destroyed in the last couple of years of its existence. A quick look at the titles as well. We've got the Great Sasuke still the Cruiserweight champion. Of course, we're having a little bit of a problem with him in terms of the fact that he's not available much of the time. And I was even going to have a Cruiserweight title match on Nitro in the Go Home episode to Slamboree, and he wasn't available again. All being well, he will be defending the Cruiserweight title on the next episode of Nitro, which we'll be bringing you in a few days' time, against Shane Helms in their second singles contest since the game began. The Cruiserweight Tag Team titles, obviously now the FBI are on top. You can see the prestige here, not great, and it stayed around that 29 since the beginning of the game. And actually, that victory for the FBI over Kidman and Ray Jr. was the best match that we've had for the Cruiserweight Tag Team titles so far. So a good team, perhaps, to put the belts on. And anyway, they are the Cruiserweight Tag Team Champions. The US Heavyweight title, again, that match with Tommy Dreamer was poor compared to obviously the one against Kurt Hennig and certainly the one against Kevin Nash. But the prestige is at 65, which is about where it's been since the beginning of the game as well. But Awesome's having a really good reign as US Champion. Booker T continues to hold on to the World Heavyweight title. And apart from that first one against Sting, they've all been around the 67, 68 mark, with the exception of the Shane Douglas match. Of course, Booker T and Douglas did not have particularly good chemistry against one another. 5 successful defenses of the title, and again, that prestige is around about the same place as it was from the beginning of the series. And then the World Tag Team Champions are still Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger. They've been having some really good matches. Again, the prestige is pretty much where it was, but their matches have been really good. Totally Buff versus the Insiders was a 72 at Slamboree, which is a significant improvement on their match on Nitro a few weeks ago, and better than any other tag team title match we've had so far as well. So yeah, they've had a really good reign also. Coming back to this front page, this was a story I hadn't noticed when we were first here. Steve Austin has announced that he's putting his career on hold in order to seek election to political office. Apparently based on an entirely genuine desire to make a difference, he says that he's unlikely to return to wrestling until he has till he feels that he's achieved all he can as a politician. So Steve Austin, yeah, he's basically on hiatus. He's basically not going to be wrestling. He's got an unknown return date. He's in politics, and Austin's effectively taking himself out of the business for a while, which is a very interesting development in terms of the game world. Presumably, this is why Jericho defeated Steve Austin for the title at SummerSlam. But there you go. So that was really interesting too. That's one of the kind of random things about the game, is it does do this. It kind of, sometimes you get people die off, sometimes you get people retire, surprisingly, and then other times you get things like this where Steve Austin's basically hanging up the boots for an indefinite amount of time until he is satisfied that he's had a go at politics. So fascinating stuff. Well, that is pretty much everything for today's episode. Thank you for joining me once again. Thank you for everybody who's joined over the course of these 20 episodes. It's been real fun. Kind of feel like this is the last episode of the first phase of this series. I don't know how many phases there will be, but there was a feeling when I was booking towards this show that this is the end of the first phase. Obviously, within that first phase, we've kind of had the Magnificent Seven story, where they've had to disband, but then out of that's come this feud between Scott Steiner and Ric Flair, where they had their match at this show. So that's kind of not necessarily wrapped it up, but it's kind of, you could end the series here, and Steiner having beaten Flair in that main event was kind of like, could be a conclusion to that story. Same goes for Booker T's title reign. He's kind of like, gone through a number of different opponents and still world champion. Same goes for the, obviously, Bill Goldberg versus Shane Douglas, and the fact that their feud's been going since the Big Bang. And here we've had this cage match where Goldberg's overcome Douglas. So like, it feels like a lot of different stories have either culminated or reached a point where if we wanted to, we could end them. Some of them we may end, some of them we may not. But I also feel like there's a lot more to do. I've in terms of a disclosure for how far ahead I've planned. So I have ideas for all the way up to Starrcade at the end of the year. So that will be in December. So, I think there's plenty more of the story for me to tell. I've planned the entire next month building up to what we've got at the end of September in terms of that pay-per-view. And and there, as I said, there's sort of outline plans for everything all the way up to Starrcade now. So hopefully the series will continue to go for a long, long time after this. But as I say, this felt like a little bit of an end of the first phase of the series. If you want to continue to follow along with the series, as I said before, please subscribe. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please give me a like as well. They are always appreciated. Until next time, though, where we'll be covering the Nitro the night after Slamboree. Thank you for watching.